All right, good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Training will last about an hour, hour and a half. And I'm just making sure that audio is going through. And then we can go ahead and get started. So here you can see our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also navigate there from our virtualpbx.com website. You'll see a blue bar towards the top of the page. There's a login link there. There's also a support link there. The login one would be what you want to click on to get to here. And to log in, we need 3 pieces of information, right? First, your email address. That's going to be unique for each user. Password, which should have been emailed to you. And then the account name, which is typically your company name. Now, if for some reason the password wasn't sent to you, that's all right. You can click on the Forgot Your Info link, which is right above the sign-in bar. So if you click on that, flips it over. We still need your email address. All right, but then the next 2 fields, we need one of the 2 filled out. So either the account name, right, company name, or a phone number that's on your account, right? So one of your customer-facing phone numbers. Then you click on Reset Password. You'll get an email with a link that gets you logged in, and then you can change your password to something you can remember. Then it will log you out, right? Then you come back to the sign-in page. You still fill out these 3 pieces of information. And the reason for that is it gives you a chance to click on this Remember Me box down here. And then you click Sign In. Now, I'm using a test account that's been around for a while, and I've logged into it several times. So I start off here on the dashboard. If it's your first time logging in to Dash, then the system actually takes you to your account page. You can always get there by clicking on your name at the top of the page. And here you can see where you can change your email address. You could change your own password here, as well as your time zone, etc. As an admin, I can also get to the account level settings over here on the left. Main thing that most people change is their time zone for the account. If you ever change your company name or the account name, please do send an email to our billing team so that way they can make sure everything is changed on their side of the world. Now, this is a test account, so I don't have everything that would show up if I was a customer account. So for your accounts, over here on the left under user, you would have another section for billing information. So this is where you would update your credit card information, for example, right? You could see your invoices, you could see your service plan. You could also update the contact information, right? The billing contact, basically who gets sent the invoices, essentially the account owner. When you're done here, go ahead and click on Close, and then you will be taken to your dashboard. Now, also on that first login, the Dash Wizard will come up, little pop-ups telling you what things are. It happens on that account page. It will also happen on the dashboard page. I believe it happens on users and on groups, just so you know. You can always skip out of it if you just want to continue. All right, so on our dashboard page, up at the top, we got your name, right, and your account. So that's where you would click on to get to those account settings that we were just looking at. For many of you, to the right of your name, you'll have a Dnd toggle, right? Dnd stands for Do Not Disturb, right? If you click on it, that means you put your user into Do Not Disturb mode, meaning calls aren't being offered to you. They go to voicemail. You can tell if it's on if it's white, right? If it's basically black with a little gray outline, it's off. The reason I don't have it here on my user is because my user is part of an Acd queue. Queues and Do Not Disturb don't work well together, so that's why it's removed from my user once I was added to the queue. We got the little question mark icon here, right, for help. Chat with us opens up a chat window to speak to a support team member. Learn more. This will open up a new tab to take you to the support pages. Online store. This will take you to store.virtualpbx.com, where you can order things like a VoIP phone, for example. And then the web phone. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Had a coughing fit. So the web phone shows up because I've added a web phone to my user. So once I've done that, I can click on this. This will open up a new tab that goes to webphone.virtualpbx.net. That uses my Dash login information and allows me to use Chrome or Firefox from a computer to make and receive calls. The mobile versions of Chrome and Firefox are not supported. So just be aware of it. It should be on a computer, right? Desktop or laptop. Then we got the 3 horizontal line icon, right? Sometimes referred to as a hamburger icon or menu icon. These get you to other features of Dash, some of which do have fees associated with them. So I will try to make sure to highlight those. We're going to be on the dashboard. Oops. Right, this one here for the majority of the training. And most of the dashboard features are included, but there are a couple that are not. So I'll make sure to highlight those. Then we have the little logout icon here. All right, here in the middle here, we got total users. These are people on my account who make and receive calls. All right, most of our plans are based on a per user basis, meaning as you add users to your account, your bill will increase. Then we got the total devices. I have 31 and a breakdown of those devices. Then first up, we have web phone, right, which Chrome or Firefox. I have 12 of those. Then we have a soft phone, right? Software application that acts as a phone, right? Uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. Technically, the web phone is a kind of soft phone. It was just developed later. The soft phone can include the VirtualPBX soft phone app. It can also include soft phone apps from other companies, right? You get third-party soft phones. And we got cell phone, right? Pretty self-explanatory. And then SIP phone. So SIP phone is a physical VoIP phone, right? So some jargon, sorry to throw all that at you. VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol, right? Uses your internet connection to make and receive calls, right? SIP is a kind of a VoIP device. So if you're in the market, shopping for a VoIP phone that you want to use with us, you want to make sure it is SIP compliant or SIP compatible. All right, other kinds of VoIP phones will not work, at least not natively. All right, and then unregistered devices. This is actually in relation to my SIP phones. It's saying that 3 of them are unregistered, meaning the system cannot send and receive calls from those devices. Now, that can simply just be that they're not plugged in right now, right? Someone was moving, for example. It could be a sign of a larger issue, right? There could be a network setting problem. Or maybe a user has lost internet connection completely. All right, next up we have total numbers, right? These are phone numbers on the account. I have 19. Most Dash plans include anywhere from, I believe it's 2 to 15 phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price, right? So I am paying over no matter what. The overage is based on a per number per month basis. It varies somewhat depending on the plan. So if you've been with us for a while, your rate may differ than the rate that is currently posted on our pricing page. So you'd want to talk to our account services team to verify how many numbers are included in your current account and then what the overage is for having more than that. All right, then we have a breakdown. Actually, we have a couple of breakdowns. First one is assigned numbers and spare numbers, right? Assigned number means you're using it, right? Someone can call that number and, expect to, be able to speak to someone, leave a voicemail, join a conference, or send a fax. Right? Spare number means it's a number on your account, so it counts towards your allotment, but you're not currently using it. All right. So for example, let's say you're getting a number to get ready for a Valentine's Day promotion, right? You don't want that number active yet, right? Because the promotion is not yet running, but you want to have that number in, already in place, so that way when you're ready to go live, you can then make it active. Likewise, when that promotion runs, you can or completes, right? You can then remove that number from being active and still have that as a spare number to use for a later promotion. All right, next breakdown we have is USDID and US toll-free. US toll-free, that's US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833 currently. USDID, that just means a US local phone number, right? So if you want a phone number in Miami, Florida, or in Miami, Ohio, you can do so, right? You can get numbers in California, Texas, etc. If you want an international phone number, that is possible. You would need to email our porting team. That's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. They'll need to know the city and country that you want a phone number in. They will then check to see what requirements that country has for acquiring a phone number, and then they'll pass that information to you. Once we get that, then we'll acquire the phone number and assign it to your account. All right, conference bridges. This just means I have enabled the conference feature on 2 of my users. This means they can host or moderate a conference. Over here to the right, we got our main numbers. Right, so these 4 phone numbers, they behave in the same fashion. Right, so they all go to the same location. They're all going to have the same main greeting. Down below that, I have my conference number. You can have multiple conference room numbers if you want to, but this phone number is what everyone dials to get to the conference rooms, whether they're my staff members, my vendors, my customers, what have you. Fax box number, you can have the one main fax box number. This is your inbound fax number. Right, company directory, this downloads a CSV file, shows all your users, their extension numbers, and their primary device. The soft phone directory download, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. So you would download this file, upload it to the VirtualPBX soft phone app on your Mac or Windows, and this will allow you to see the presence or the status of the other users in relation to the soft phone, right? So if everyone in your organization has a VirtualPBX soft phone, then you'll be able to see, if they're on a call or not. Now, like within VirtualPBX, for example, I have coworkers who have multiple devices. So on my soft phone, I can only see the status of their soft phone use, right? So like if I try to call my coworker Jeff, right, on the soft phone, it looks like he's available, but he might actually be using his desk phone, and I wouldn't know it. So that would be the limitation there. Right, then we got the store discount code. So just for being a Dash customer, you'll have a store discount code show up here. That's for use in the online store. And then we have the account realm. This is used in a couple different spots. One, it's one of the 3 pieces of information you would need to program or provision a third-party soft phone application or device. It's also used to send out a fax. So on Dash, if you want to send out a fax, it's actually not through the Dash interface. You actually just create an email like you normally would. In the to field of that email, you put the plus sign, the number 1, area code and phone number, little @ symbol, and then your account realm. And then you attach a PDF or a TIFF file and click send. Just one attachment per email. It does need to be PDF or TIFF. The system does not look at the subject line or the body of the email, right? It ignores those completely. It looks at the to field, it looks at the from email address, it looks at the attachments. All right, up here, you have the caller ID. This is your company caller ID, or the default that the system will use. This first pull down, which doesn't work well with my streaming software, will show your main numbers. Right, so you can choose any of your main company phone numbers to show up as your default outbound caller ID. Then you have the company caller ID name, or CNAME. This can be up to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters. Once you click Save Changes, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAME. It takes them about 3 business days to update their servers. Sometimes it's a little faster, but 3 business days is what to expect. So what happens is when you pick up a VoIP phone and you make an outbound call, right? This by default, the system is going to send this phone number and then this CNAME information out as part of your caller ID. Now, calls can go through many different carriers before it reaches the destination. If one of those carriers does not support CNAME, then your CNAME information does not show up at your destination, right? And just as a caveat, when sending or making a test call like this to a cell phone, that cell phone provider has ultimate say that what shows up on the cell phones on their network. So some providers, to have CNAME show up for every call, you have to pay them an additional fee per month. So your CNAME may not show up to the cell phones you call. That's just something to be aware of. All right, then we got the company emergency information, or E911. This is just an address you have associated with this phone number. Every phone number can have their own E911 address associated with it. And that means for every VoIP device, you can choose which phone number to use for their E911, right? So that way people have the correct address for their location. Any changes you make to the caller ID number, the name, or the E911, click on Save Changes. All right, next up we have hold music. Now on hold music, or on Dash, hold music is defined as after a call has reached a user and that user then presses hold on their VoIP device, that is when hold music will play. All right, on Dash, you can upload your own files. It will play back or and accept .mp3, .ogg, and .wav file formats. You want to record in mono, not in stereo, and you want to make sure the file is under 1 megabyte. You would find the file on your computer, click on the up arrow icon, and then click on Save Changes. Now, hours is actually part of main number, so we'll just dive into main number here. All right, so up the top, we have your main company numbers, right? Shows all your main company numbers. If for some reason you no longer want to use a number as a main number, that's a really quick fix. You can just click on assign next to that number, right? So now the number is still on your account, right? It's now a spare number. And then you can go to your numbers tab over here on the left. And then under spare numbers, delete the number from the account. If you want to add numbers, you can add from spare, right? So numbers already on your account. You would just click on the box in front and then click on add selected. If you just want to buy new numbers, right? Get some new numbers. Let's say you're going into a new market. You would select local, and then you would need to know the area code or area codes that you're looking for, right? So like 310, right? That's LA's original area code. We unfortunately don't have any numbers available. Now, that just, and in that case, you would want to know the overlays for that area code. And you can Google that pretty easily. Like 424 is one of those overlays. And you can see I have plenty to choose from. You click add number, it adds it to your cart. It shows the number. I can add additional numbers if I wanted to, right? And I can remove the existing number, but then I just click on by number. The system is verifying that the number was truly available and then adding it and activating it to my account. It does sometimes take more time than I like, so, but I chalk that up to my impatient nature. So for toll-free numbers, it's very similar, right? You would click on by numbers, you select toll-free, and then you select the toll-free prefix you want to work with. Then click on search. And then beyond that, it's the same process, right? It's going to populate a list. You click add by numbers and add it to the account. You notice there's a little gear icon next to each number. This is where you would select the caller ID, so you can set up the CNAM information for each of your phone numbers, as well as turn on the ability to accept inbound caller ID name information, right? So that way it'll pass it on to your staff members, so it shows up on their phones. Gear icon, you can also select E911, right? So you can add an address specific to that phone number. And then Prepend is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text in front or as part of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones, right? So this way, if I hit, put in LA promo, click Save Changes. So now whenever anyone calls this 424 phone number on my staff members' VoIP phones, right, it will show up LA promo and then the caller ID. So that way my staff member knows, oh, they're calling in about my Los Angeles promo. So they can greet the customer in the appropriate way. All right, office hours strategy, you can be 24-hour open office, right, meaning your system's ready to take calls all the time, or you can choose custom office hours. If you choose custom office hours for each day of the week you're open, right, you want to put a check mark in front of the day. And then in these boxes here to the right, you put your open hours in 24-hour or military time. You also have the option down here at the bottom to decide if you want to be closed for lunch, right? So your whole facility is closed for lunch. And then you enter in your lunch hours, and then you would click Save Changes if you make any changes. Next up, we have office holidays. So first, you decide if you're closed for holidays, right? Put a check mark if you are. And then over here to the right, you have Add Holiday. You have your options for single day, date range, or advanced. Each one of these will create a new row, right? So single day, like we have here for Halloween. You put in the name for it. You select the month and the day, right? Click Save Changes. Date range, like we have down here at the bottom for Christmas break. Again, you give it a name, start date, end date. Notice that there's no year indicator. So you want to avoid a date range that includes a New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. That's why we have those here as single day options. And then lastly, we have the option for retreat, right, which is the advanced option. I guess the option for the advanced, which is the retreat, is the example. You give it a name, you select the month, you select in this middle pull down, 1st through 5th or last, and then the day of the week. And then you click on Save Changes. All right, so then we're going to incoming call handling. So this is for my main numbers, right? How is the system treating calls that come in during my open hours, during my lunch hours, because I chose to be closed for lunch, right? My after hours, because again, I have custom office hours, and my holidays. Now, these tabs, right, have the same options. So first option, call comes in, goes to my virtual receptionist. Virtual receptionist is a link. So you click on it, opens a new window. So on the left, I have my main menu, right? This is what people can press on their phone to navigate through the phone system, right? 1 for sales, 2 for support, that sort of thing. You click on Add a Route to give additional menu options. The pull down includes the default action, 0 through 9, and the star button, or star key. And then you select where it's going to go. Again, these pull downs aren't going to work on this option I just created, but if I go up here, so you've got the smart directory, right? Dial by name directory. You can send calls directly to a specific person, right? I can send it to a call queue if you're making use of Acd Cues. I can send it to a specific device, meaning a specific phone. The downside of that is if the phone does not have its own voicemail built into it, then the caller will just ring and ring until they decide to hang up. You can send it to a media file, right? A greeting file. Once that greeting file ends, the call will end. So that might be a little abrupt for your customers. You can send it to a group, which is a department. So like in this case, I have it going to my front desk group, right? Like my receptionist team. You can send it to an advanced call flow. This is if you're making use of multiple auto attendants to make use of submenuing. Or you can send it directly to a voicemail box. Now, each of those options has its own little icon, right? So group, single user, voicemail box, call queue, and then that's the directory. Over here to the right, we've got my greeting options. First up is text-to-speech, right? You can type in a greeting, click update, save, then save changes. The text-to-speech greeting is limited to 250 characters. You can sometimes go a little over that, but 250, as far as I've seen and tested, always works. And that's characters, not words. This uses a computerized or robotic voice. Once you click that update and save changes, the system will name the file the same, right? So I'm in my open hours, so it will name that file main open hours menu TTS, right? If I come in and change this an hour later in the text-to-speech, it will give that second greeting the same file name. So my advice is the first time you make use of text-to-speech greeting, after you're done clicking save and save changes, over here, click on greetings where it's grayed out right now because of the pop-up. Find that file, right? The main open hours menu TTS or after hours or lunch hours, etc. Change the name. So that way it's something you can recognize in case you need to change back to it. All right, you can upload your own file. All right, you just click on choose file. And again, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. And then you would click update and save changes. You can choose from an existing recording, right? That means any media file that you've already added to the account, whether that's a voicemail greeting, a hold music file, or a main greeting, right? You can choose any of them. You can record it over the phone. Now, the system says pick up a phone registered in this account. That means that the system wants you to use a VoIP phone that's associated with this account. If you don't want to do that, or you haven't added VoIP phones yet, let's say you have them on order, they haven't showed up yet, you can instead go under settings and see where it says allow outside recording, turn that to on. Now you can call in with a cell phone or landline. Right. No matter what though, you will need this PIN number to be able to change your main greeting. So if you just signed up, right, and you call into your main number that goes to the virtual receptionist, it will tell you that a greeting has not yet been created for this menu, and then prompt you to enter the PIN number, right, and then walk you through recording a greeting over the phone. Again, you're still going to want to go to your greetings tab and then rename it to something you can recognize easily, because it uses just a number, I believe, when it creates that greeting. Now, if you already have a greeting in place, let's say you've been with us for a few months, or maybe a few years, and let's say you just were told by your boss, hey, you're in charge of the phone system. And then you're later told you need to change a greeting or the main greeting. So you have a greeting file in place, you call in, right? You can hear that greeting. You can still enter that PIN number in, and then the system will walk you through recording a new main greeting over the phone. The downside of that is that it overwrites the existing greeting, right? It'll have the same file name, but it will change the content. Right? That tends to be more problematic during the holiday season when people, rush to change their normal main greeting to a holiday greeting, but then they lose their normal main greeting and they have nothing to go back to after the holidays end. All right, and then we have professional recording services. When you click order, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings, and you can order through them. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. and multiple versions of English, Spanish, and French. They offer multilingual greetings, hold treatment. They do their own billing, right? They deliver to you via email, and then you would just click upload your own greeting. All right, settings. First up, we have number of retries on missed dial. What that means is how many times are you allowing the inbound caller to make a mistake, right? 0 is not common, right? Usually it's 1 or 2 for most customers. You can increase that to what you want. But basically, call comes in, and let's say inbound caller presses 5, right? I don't have that as a venue option, and let's say I don't have that as an extension number, right? That counts as an error. In this case, right, I have 0 as my retries. So then the system says, okay, I'm going to set it to the default action. Right now, if I remove my default action, after when that customer presses 5, the system will end the call. Right now, if on the other hand I change this to 1, right? So customer calls in, presses 5, system says, okay, that's not valid. It will tell them that's not a valid entry. It will play the main greeting again and give them another attempt. Right? Dialing timeout, this is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press, right? So that inbound caller presses 5, the system is going to wait for 10 seconds because it's thinking that the inbound caller is going to continue entering numbers for an extension number. Right? You can change this to like 2 or 5 or what have you. All right, we already covered the outside recording. Again, that's for your main greeting. Allow dialing extensions, right? This is by default, it's on, right? Allow outside recording is off as a security feature, right? So if you turn this off, that means your inbound caller, they can only press your menu options, right? So if they know the extension number they want to reach, doesn't matter. They're not going to be able to get there. They can only press a menu option. And then the suppress playing of invalid entry, right? By default, this is off, right? And that's when the inbound caller presses say 5, they'll get a message saying, hey, that was wrong. On that last attempt, the system says, tells, it's like, we did not hear a valid entry, and then says goodbye. So any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or these settings, you click save here. You also need to click save changes back on the incoming call handling page. All right. Now, the second option here, right? Call comes in, it's being offered to Aaron, and then goes to the virtual receptionist. So right now we're still under open hours. So if I click on virtual receptionist, right, same options and settings that we had. If I go to lunch, if I click on virtual receptionist, right, it's different. So each of your times you can have a different set of menu options and obviously a different main greeting. But this second option, this is your live operator answer option, right? So call gets offered and I'm sending it to my front desk ring group first. If they can't answer it, then it goes to the virtual receptionist, right? Now this is a pull down. So you can send it to, again, a specific user. You can send it to a specific phone. You can send it to a media file, which I don't recommend because that means your inbound caller is going to hear a greeting back to back and that can cause confusion. You can send it to a group. You can also send it to a queue or one of your secondary attendants. Here, call is being offered to John Test. If he doesn't pick up, it goes to Aaron's voicemail box, right? Same pull down options as the second option with one additional option, which is down here at the bottom. You can skip the voicemail. So this particular setup, I would see typically under holidays for like a one-person business or even for a seasonal business, right? So like tax preparers are, gearing up, right? But after, say, the end of April or mid-May, it's like, okay, my tax business is going into it's, after the tax season, just send callers to voicemail, right? Like haunted houses, that sort of thing would also be. This last option only comes up if you're making use of multiple auto attendants, but you can send inbound callers to one of your secondary attendants. The main conference number, you can add additional, right? You can add from spare or buy new numbers. You can create a custom greeting if you want. Now, this is a custom text-to-speech greeting, right? You click enabled and then you type in the greeting. You're still restricted to that 250 characters. Now, even without the custom greeting, when you call your fax number, the system does say, welcome to the conference, and then prompts the user or the caller to enter the conference room number and the PIN number. Main fax box number, again, you can only have the one main fax box number. So if I didn't have a number here, right, let's say I've clicked unassign, right, then it would say, okay, what number do you want to use? You can use add from spare. So I can put that number back. And then it asks me, okay, who's going to get the inbound notifications when a fax comes in, right? So you type in an email address. Now, the email permissions, that's for sending a fax out. So you can, for example, put your domain here. So that way, anyone with this VirtualPBX domain can send a fax out on this account, even if they're not a user on my account. Right? You could also just put a single email address saying, okay, this person can send faxes out. All right, auto attendance. Now, auto attendance is for multiple auto attendants on your account. This is a plan-specific feature, right? So you may have to change your plan to be able to get this feature. Submenuing, right? So 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, right? So you have multiple level greetings or menus, I should say. The other option is if you have multiple businesses, but you have the same staff members answering calls for those businesses, right? So each business would have its own main number, its own main greeting, right? And its own menu options, but you have staff members handling both companies. All right, so add an attendant up here at the top. That's how you add a new one. You give it a name and an extension number, right? Click create attendant. Once an attendant is created, you click on its name. That gives you the option to say, do you want it to be in the main menu, right? Meaning it's a menu option, so it's a submenu. Or by default, it leaves unavailable in main menu, meaning it's a standalone attendant, right? So Pooch Walk is my dog walking business, right? Which is separate from my cleaning business, for example. Phone numbers, right? You can add phone numbers to an attendant, especially if it's going to be standalone. Here's the extension number. So anywhere that you can have extensions, so like on a user or group, if you want to change the extension number, I usually recommend add the new extension number first, right? Enter it here. And then unassign the existing extension if you don't want to make use of it. And then click on Save Changes. And then you click on the little wrench icon under Settings. It will take a little while to load. Now, you see I have open hours, I have lunch hours, after hours, and holidays, right? All of that matches what I already set up under main number, right? So if my cleaning business and my dog walking business have different hours of operations, then you should probably have them on separate accounts, right? It might be possible to do that with some customized configuration. And for that instance, for both, you're going to want to double check with our account services team to see what the best option is. They're going to need to know the full scope of what you're doing and what your business's hours and whatnot are. But beyond that, this is always calls go to the virtual receptionist for your auto attendants. So just like we were just looking at, you add your menu options, right down here. You have your greeting options, your settings. You click save, and then save changes. Right, devices. These shows your devices on your account. Red means it's not registered. right? Meaning we can't send calls to it. Black means you've disabled it. And then green means it's registered, meaning we can send calls to that device. Up here at the top, that's where you would add more devices. Okay, SIP phone, that's that physical VoIP phone. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some don't have many very options. Others have a ton, relatively speaking. But you find the manufacturer and the model of phone you want to work with. You give it a name, right? So Mary's phone, right? And then you put in the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each device. It's often a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone is plugged in, if you click on like the menu status or basic settings, MAC is usually one of those. And you just enter that information here. You click create device. After that, you only need to assign that device to a user, which we'll get to under the user page. Now, unfortunately, you're not done. You need to access the phone's web user interface, right? Typically, that means getting the IP address of the phone, putting that IP address in your web browser on a computer that's on the same network as that phone. You log into the phone's UI, and then you need to enter in a URL. Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go here to get your config file, right? It will do so. It will reboot a couple times and then show up as a green device. Now, for the specifics for those manufacturers, right? So for these 6 manufacturers, we have a document on our support pages. You can also do a search for auto provisioning phones. That's going to have screenshots of what you're looking for, the proper syntax for that URL, because it varies slightly from each manufacturer. And there'll also be some settings to double check. All right, cell phone and landline are pretty easy and the same, essentially. You give it a name, right? So we can say Bob's phone. And then you put +1 area code and phone number. And then you click on create device. And we'll go here. So you look at the device. If you go to advanced options, this is default settings for a cell phone or a landline. So on Dash, when we send call to a cell phone or landline, that's an endpoint, right? It's not going to go any further than that. Meaning you can't transfer that call from your cell phone to another Dash user. Now, when we send a call to your cell phone, right, your phone will ring, you'll pick up, and by default, you're going to hear, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call. Now, that may not always work. For instance, let's say you're adding a cell phone to actually send calls to your after-hours automated answering service, right? That automated answering service cannot press 1 to accept a phone call because it doesn't have fingers. So what you would do is put a check mark here for allow use of cell phone's voicemail. What that means is now we send the call to that phone number. As soon as we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call, right? So for your automated answering service, that's great. That's wonderful, right? Call's connected. Your answering service handles the call. If this was my actual cell phone, for instance, right? Calls come to me. If I'm not able to pick up on my cell phone, right? But my cell phone voicemail picks up, our Dash still treats that like a connected call. So that incoming caller ends up in my personal cell phone's voicemail box. Now, some people love that, and that's how they want it to work. Other people absolutely do not. That's a personal preference. The other thing that sometimes comes up is this one here, keep original caller ID. So when call comes in into the Dash system to my cell phone, right? So customer Mary is calling me, right? On my cell phone, I see Mary's phone number. I don't recognize it. I've just had 5 calls in a row about extending my auto warranty. So I just let the call go to voicemail. Now, if I uncheck this, Instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, I see my main company number show up on my cell phone. What do I mean by that? We go back to dashboard, right here. This phone number, this 408 phone number, that's what would show up on my cell phone. Hopefully I would recognize my company phone number, so then I'd be more inclined to answer that call. All right, soft phone, assuming it, there we go. Right, first, there's this warning message. I do recommend that you read this at least once. It's basically about wireless VoIP technology and that you might not be at the location that the system thinks you're at, so be careful about dialing 911 from a soft phone. But here, you give it a device name and then the SIP username, right? The SIP password, and you just click on the box to reveal that SIP password, and the realm, right? These three pieces of information you'd want to copy and paste into your third-party soft phone application or onto a document to use to provision or program that device, right? Then you click on Create Device and then add it to a user. All right, the others we'll go ahead and cover a little bit more in the users, because they're more applicable there. Now, the little wrench icon here next to the VoIP phones, right? You can see the basic settings at the advanced. That's where you can change the caller ID, but more importantly, the emergency information, right? You can select one of your other phone numbers there if you have it set up. All right, your greetings tab. This shows all your media files on the account. Again, whether hold music, voicemail greeting, or main greeting. Up here at the top, you can click Add. Right. Find the file on your computer, right? .wave, .mp3, .ogg. Click on Create Greeting, and it will save it here. For any greeting that's already here, you've got its name, right? Like that main open hours menu TTS, and the source, right? So TTS, text to speech, upload, uploaded file. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. You can download any of these files to listen to them, right? That way you can make sure they're relevant. If you click on the little wrench icon, that's where you can change the name of the file or just straight up get rid of it if you don't need it any longer. Groups, sometimes referred to as ring groups or hunt groups, right? Departments. Creating a group, pretty easy. Up at the top, you click on Add Group. You give it a name and an extension number, and you click and drag the staff members that you want to be in that group. Then you click on Create Group. Once a group's created, you can click on its name, right? You can change the name, and then you have group call attempts, right? Default is 1, but you can use these arrows to the right to increase or decrease it. And this is how many times the inbound caller is offered to your staff members, right? So right now I'm only offering it to them 1 time. Click on Save Changes. Next up, you click on the members box. This is how you're determining who gets the call. Now, along the top, you have a timestamp, right? You can change that last one. So I can change this down to 60 if I wanted to. And then I would click Distribute, and that will equalize how much time the system offers to the call to each one of my staff members. If I don't like this order, let's say I know, oh, Peter has a special project that he needs to concentrate on. I can click and drag him and move him to the bottom. Likewise, okay, oh, Aaron, he just finished his major project and I want him to take more calls. Now, right now the call order hasn't really changed, right? Because Peter's still listed first. But if I click Distribute, now Aaron's first and Peter's at the end. Now, these are sliders, right? So I can click and drag the sliders to adjust the call range, all right? I could do something like that. So that way Aaron and John here get the call the whole time. And then, is that 16 seconds, right? Michael starts ringing at 21. David starts ringing at 34. Peter starts ringing. Or, right, I can make them all go the whole length. for example. And then I would click on Save Changes. Now, those are the only routing options you have for a ring group. Ring groups, you can have your users can answer calls with a cell phone, landline, or a VoIP phone. Right, that's one of their advantages. But the disadvantage is your staff members, right? They are always in the ring group, right? They can't change their status unless they're an admin, right? Now, the related feature is Acd Cues, right? Automatic call distribution that has a fee associated with it, and they're only available with certain plans. A queue, you can only accept calls with a VoIP device, right? Soft phone, SIP phone, or even a web phone. But your staff members can log themselves in and out of the queue, right? They can mark themselves away. Groups can have extension numbers. You can have them have multiple extension numbers if you want to. They can also have their own phone numbers, right? A queue, by the way, can only have either an extension number or a phone number. It cannot have both. Whereas you see down here, these groups can have both. Now, this phone number that's on a group, it's available 24/7, right? It's not going to pay attention to your hours of operation because that's only specific to your main numbers, right? This is not a main number, so the hours of operation don't apply to it. And then we have group features. Ringback. So when a call is offered to, or call comes into a ring group, right? Your group member's phone starts ringing. When the system detects that, right? So let's say Aaron's phone starts ringing in this ring group. The system detects that. It plays that sound back to the inbound caller, right? That's the ringing sound coming back to the inbound caller. If I don't want my inbound caller to hear that, I can enable ringback and upload a .wav, .mp3, .ogg file that would play back instead. All right, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Right, click on Save Changes. Now, let's say when the inbound caller goes through, and for whatever reason, Aaron's phone doesn't actually ring, right? Then there's no ringing sound that can be replaced, right? So the inbound caller in that instance would hear silence until the next phone starts ringing in my group members. That would be an instance of why you'd want to have multiple people start ringing at the get-go, or even have VoIP devices within your group members. Next action. So basically you're saying, hey, what do you want to do if no one picks up? When you enable it, then you choose where you're sending the calls, right? You can send it to a voicemail box, another user, another group, an Acd Cue, devices, one of your attendants, or even back to your main menu. Allow call forward. If you enable this, you're allowing your users to make use of call forwarding, i.e. they're not going to be at their normal desk phone, but they still want to be able to receive calls from the group. So they can send it to their cell phone temporarily. And then caller ID prepend. This is for your VoIP phone users. You can add additional text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on their displays. Again, to give your staff members a heads up on about what the call might be about, especially useful if you have people in multiple roles or multiple groups. All right, numbers shows your numbers on the account. You start off in numbers in use, so you see where they're going. Right, you got the gear icon here, so you can always set up the caller ID or prepend, etc. Your spare numbers show the numbers you're not using on the account. And if you want to get rid of a number, you click on the box in front of the number, and then you see I have the option here to delete. And now it's removed from my account. You can buy numbers here, right? So you can add numbers to your spare number list, right? Local toll free. And then you also have the option to port a number. So port a number means you're moving a number from one carrier to another. So say from Comcast to VirtualPBX, right? You click on new port request, you give it a name, choose US local or toll free, click next, and then it wants you to upload a copy of your bill, right? Then you verify, or you're saying that yes, it is within 30 days. The system will then ask you for the phone numbers that you want to port, the address associated with those phone numbers. It's going to give you an opportunity to download a blank letter of agency, or LOA, and then to upload a completed and signed LOA. Then it asks you about, there's four checkboxes it wants you to check, and you should read through those. The main one being to make sure you're keeping both accounts active, right? So can't do account active with, say, Comcast, account active with VirtualPBX until the port is done. And then you submit the port request. You'll get an email immediately from the system, right? Automated systems email saying, hey, we got your port request. By the next business day, you should get a second email from our porting team, meaning an actual person has looked at the documents and actually submitted the port request at that time. A couple things to be aware of in the letter of agency, right? It asks you for company information, right? Business name, address, etc. That should match what your current carrier has on file for the phone numbers, right? So let's say you're porting 3 phone numbers and there's 3 different addresses associated with those phone numbers. That means you have 3 different port requests and 3 different LOAs, right? The LOA does need to be signed, right? You can't simply type your name in twice because that will cause a rejection and then cause a delay in the port completing. Let's go ahead and cancel that out. In general, toll-free numbers take about 3 to 5 business days to complete if everything is correct. Local numbers, on average, take about 2 to 3 weeks. They can sometimes be quite a bit faster, depending on the carriers involved. I've seen them as quickly as the next business day, but that is not super common. All right, users. Shows all the users on the account. Gray person is your standard user. A blue suit icon means that's your admin, right? So you have multiple admins, which means they can all do the same things that we're talking about here. Up here at the top, you click Add User. All right, first and last name, pretty easy. The email address used for login, that needs to be unique for each user, right? So you can't reuse email addresses for different people. And then you create a password for them. And then the main extension number, you can type in whatever, right? So this account was started with extension 1000, but if I wanted to, I can make a new extension number. By default, a voicemail box is created for the user. Oh, and you see here the system is saying, hey, that extension's already in use. Right, so now this voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So let's say I create the user and then I add a VoIP phone to that user right away. That user can then pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98 and then click send. That will log them right into this voicemail box, and the system will then prompt them to record a voicemail greeting. Right, record their name, record their PIN number, and voicemail greeting. All right. Then you've got the option, do you want to be in the user directory? Hold on just a minute. Sorry about that. All right. So show in the company directory. You can choose to do that now or later. Send emails to an alternate address. So by default, the email address used for login is where the system sends voicemail messages, for example, password reset. If for whatever reasons you don't want to use the email address you use for login for those notifications, you can then click here, right? Say, hey, I want to send it to a different address, and then enter in that different address. And then lastly, send credentials to the user. If you only need to create one user, right, click on create user. Otherwise, create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. All right, you can change their name. You can change credentials to change their email address or their password. Likewise, you can resend the password reset email to them right there. Voicemail box PIN, this mostly for your cell phone or landline users, but you create a temporary PIN number for them. Here's that option to send to an alternate address, as well as the user directory. Over here, this pull down is where you can change a user to be an admin or an admin to a user. Next up, we got the time zone, right? Just search the city if you have people in different locations. Then you've got the display language, right? So what the web page is displaying, English, French, German, or Russian. The ringing timeout is measured in seconds. By default, it's 20 seconds because the system is geared towards VoIP phones. If you have the follow me feature enabled, this will be grayed out like it is here. And you can adjust that by device with follow me calling. Extensions, you can see the extension numbers for your various users. You can add an extension or remove an extension. Users can have their own phone numbers. Again, these phone numbers work 24/7, right? But you can either add from spare or buy new. Devices, you can add from spare devices here, right? You can add new device, right? You have the same options. The main thing is for the soft phone, yeah, you still get that warning message. It still defaults you to using a third-party soft phone, but you have this other option down here. It says use third-party application. You can click on that, say use VirtualPBX application. Now, I'm getting a warning message here saying, hey, that this email address that this user has is already associated with a soft phone. So it's not going to allow me to create one for him. Now, if instead, actually, let's see if, nope, that one is still associated too. But you can use the use alternate email to still create a soft phone for a user. Right here, actually, all right, so let's use yet a different. Yes, there's a typo in that email address, but that's okay. Since we're just doing this as an example. But then you just give it a name, you click on create device, and then you click on Save Changes. So now, once the system has updated, Aaron's going to get an email with his login credentials for the VirtualPBX soft phone, as well as in that email there are download links to download the app to his device, whether that's a cell phone or a tablet or a computer. Right? He can then log in and then make and receive calls from the app. Likewise, you can add web phones directly to a user. Right, so you just click on New Device, select Web Phone. And the reason you'd want to do add a web phone here on the users directly versus on the devices page is that the web phone uses your dash login information. So when you go to webphone.virtualpbx.net, it has login, right? And asks for username, password, and account name. And it uses exactly what you use on the dash.virtualpbx.com. So that's why you would just want to add it directly here. Beyond that, adding any of the other devices is just like what we showed previously. All right, then we got the user features box. So caller ID number, this only works for users that have their own phone number. But when you enable it and save changes, whenever Aaron makes an outbound call from one of his VoIP phones, right, this 775 phone number will show up as his caller ID, right, instead of the 408 number on the main page. Call forwarding. So users can enable call forwarding themselves. They can do that under the user portal, or they can use feature codes on their VoIP phones. As an admin, you can also set up failover mode for them, basically saying, hey, if your VoIP phone becomes unregistered, I'm going to send it to either a desk phone or a mobile phone. You just put +1 area code and phone number, click on Save Changes. Right? On, likewise, same thing. Right? So in terms of call forwarding, right, whatever device you forward to should not be a device already on the user. Right? So if Aaron already has his cell phone number as well as his VoIP phone, there's no need to make use of call forwarding because it will still get to his cell phone number, assuming I set that up under Follow Me Calling. All right, hot desking. This is a VoIP feature. You click Enable, you give it a hot desk ID, you click Save Changes. What this is in, say, shared office environment, or like these days, a lot of companies are going with hybrid scheduling. So let's say Aaron only comes into the office on Tuesdays and Fridays, right? Tuesday, he rolls in, he finds an open desk with a VoIP phone, right? So he sits down at desk number 7, he picks up the VoIP phone, hits *11, turns on hot desking on the phone, and asks him for his hot desk ID. He enters that. Now calls that are going to his user will go to the phone he's sitting at, right? Whether he's in a group, whether he's in a queue, or just someone just dials the extension number, gonna ring at the phone he's sitting at. End of his day, he picks up the phone, hits *12, that turns off hot desking. Right. Friday rolls around, he comes in, someone's already sitting at desk number 7. He says hi to Mary. And he sits over at desk number 22. Same thing, right? Pick up the VoIP phone, *11, his hot desk ID, now calls are coming to him there. Voicemail box, this was enabled when the user was created, and this is fairly default. The only difference here is transcription is actually a plan-specific feature. Basically, the system listens to the voicemail and tries to type it out for you in the email notification. Right, so basically, call comes in to Aaron, he's not able to pick up. He will get an email, and there'll be an attachment in that email that he can double-click on and listen to, right, MP3 file. Now, voicemail boxes are limited to 100 messages, right? After they get to 100, voicemail box is full, no one else can leave a message. If you don't want to run into that kind of issue, you have this option here, right? Delete message from the database after sending the notification, right? So since we're already sending out the attachment, then the system, once that email is sent out, the system will then delete the voicemail from the account. And that way the person can only check their voicemail messages via their email, right? They can't call in later. They can't use the user portal. Fax box, users can have their own fax boxes if you want them to. If you decide to enable this on a user, I do recommend selecting a phone number, right? Either using a spare number, buying a new number, right? Aaron here is set up to have faxes go to extension 399. So that means the person faxing, right, has to call the main number. That goes to the auto attendant. Then they enter 399, and then they press on send fax, right? So on a physical fax machine, that's possible, right? You can listen to it on speakerphone or through the handset, and some of them, right, you can simply enter the number and like use comma, comma, or star, star to have a pause, and then enter the 399, send the fax through. Electronic fax services may or may not allow you to fax to an extension number, or they may charge you extra for it. Additionally, Aaron will not be able to send a fax out because when he tries to do that, the system will use that extension 399 as his caller ID. And that's not enough digits to be valid caller ID, so it will fail. So that's why I typically recommend if you're going to do that, make use of a full phone number. Conference bridge, right? If you enable conferencing on the user, the only other thing you want to do is set up the conference room PIN number and then click on Save Changes. The user can adjust the PIN numbers themselves on their user portal. Follow me. This is where you set up what devices are going to ring and in what order, right? So when you first set up, they're all set up under Do Not Ring because the system doesn't know like which phones you want to use, right? If you decide you want to use all the devices, then you click on that. This is a slider, right? You've got your total ring time up here. Defaults to 120, so you can do something like that, right? Click on Distribute. You can change the order and click Distribute again, right? So now you're hitting his VoIP devices first and then the cell phone last. Now, for cell phones, you typically want at least 30 seconds, if not 45 seconds to a minute. It simply takes more time to route a call to a cell phone than it does to, say, a landline or a VoIP phone. Right? Basically, when we send call out, say to a landline, right? Call goes out, we send it to the landline telecom, they go, oh yeah, it's right here. And they just pass the call through. Versus when we send a call out to a cell phone, right? Call goes to the cell phone carrier, they say, hold on a second, we need to find them first. Right? Ping cell phone towers, they find your phone, then they send the call through. That delay, right, trying to find you, is why you want to have a longer ring time on your PBX account to get the calls to go through. And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, music on hold. Users, you can choose to enable this, and users can have their own hold music. Upload a file, right? .mp3, .ogg, .wav, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Customize call recording. So it starts off looking like this when you first enable it, right? Because it wants to know what kind of calls do you want to record. Right? Inbound internal, coworker Bob called me. Right? Inbound external, customer Mary called me. Outbound internal means I called coworker Bob because I want to talk about the Chiefs game again. Right? Outbound external, right? I called customer Mary. And then click on Save Changes. Now, every account comes with storage as part of your plan. It's going to vary depending on the plan that you're on. And once you go over your storage, you get charged an overage for it. So you're going to want to talk to account services to confirm that. You can also link your account to an AWS account if you have one. And that's typically cheaper in terms of their overages and storage costs. And especially if you have a lot of call volume with a lot of call recording, you're probably going to want to store it with AWS. Lastly, do not disturb. If you enable this, that means calls are not going to be offered to your phones. right? Instead, they're going to go to voicemail. All right, voicemail boxes. It shows all your voicemails on the account. If you see data here in this third column, that means it's a user voicemail box, right? Created at the same time as the user. You can create your own voicemail boxes up here at the top. You just need a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number. Then click on Create Voicemail Boxes. Once a voicemail box is created, if you click on the wrench icon under Advanced, first you got greeting media. Now you can upload a file, right? If you already have it on the system or it's already on your computer, right? If it's on the system, you just click on the pull down here. Otherwise, you upload. Under the basic settings, that's where you would see the mailbox number and PIN number where you could record it over the phone, right? For a voicemail box you create, recipients, you need to add a recipient, or at least you should add a recipient, right? Your user voicemail boxes already have a recipient built in, so you don't need to do this step for them. And then options. There we go. That was weird. So once you've added a recipient and have a greeting media file in place, click on the Already Set Up. And then you can decide, do you want to delete after notification as well as attach messages to the email? And then click Save Changes. Advanced routing, this is where direct inward system access is, or DISA. This feature is actually not enabled on new accounts after they sign up. This is something that you would have to request via our account services team. What DISA does is allow you to call in from a cell phone or a landline and essentially log in over the phone and then make an outbound call. That outbound call will not show your cell phone number as the outbound caller ID. It will instead show your main company number. So once you have this feature enabled, you click Enable here. And by default, it creates a PIN number for you. I recommend click Edit Settings and add an extension number and make it not part of your normal series of extensions, right? So if you started with extension 500, right, then I would say do not make this extension, 599 or 580, whatever. Instead, do something like this, make it a 4-digit extension. Actually, I recommend 4-digit extensions in general. So now, from your cell phone, you can call into your main number that rings to the virtual receptionist. You would then enter the extension number, right, which is something hopefully only you and your staff would know. And then it's going to ask you for the PIN number. When you enter the PIN number, then you'll hear dial tone again. Then you enter area code and phone number you're going to reach out to. You make that call. The person you're calling sees your main company number, right? Dashboard, caller ID, right? This phone number, not your cell phone number. Now, the reason this feature isn't enabled on new accounts at sign up is because it's a way for your account to be subject to fraud, right? If someone's able to figure out your PIN number and the extension number, they can log in at any time and make outbound calls on your account, and you wouldn't know about it right away. Probably not until your next invoice. Now, you could go to your call logs, and that will show you your call history, where I see here, Mike made an outbound call, fortunately to a 408 number, so it's only a local call. Right, if I switch this to this month. So a left pointing arrow, that's an outbound call, right? You can always click on it to see like what phone was used and what the phone number they went to, how long the call was. And then hopefully we have a green arrow to the right here. There we go. Green arrow to the right, call comes in, and it rang to this device. Now, each of these calls, you have a little fire hydrant icon here. That creates an email that goes to support@virtualpbx.com. In the body of the email, just type in what happened or what didn't happen, right? Your experience, right? It will have the technical details already added to it, and that way our support team can follow up with you. You do typically want to see things that say normal clearing, because that means the system, as far as the system is concerned, the call ended normally, right? If you see something else like recovery on time or expire, That usually indicates a network issue of some type or a problem with VoIP. But usually it's a network issue. And in general, on a connected call, right, you're going to see two legs, right? This is the inbound leg, right? So call coming into the system. This is from the system to my user, right? The outbound leg. So this would be fair and normal, right? If you have a call going to a ring group and it rings all of them at once, right, this would be much longer, and you'd see many calls going out to your staff members at the same time. You can download this file. It's a CSV, right? You can also do custom and select the full month, for example. The system will let you go back up to 1 year in terms of your call logs, so that way you can download them. If it's something you need, right, for a compliance issue, for example, or compliance department, I recommend you want to do this every month. If you have heavy call volume, you might have to do the custom settings for a week at a time. All right, feature codes. I've already mentioned a couple of these, but these are ways for your VoIP phone users to access different features of Dash via their VoIP phones. This information is also on a web page on our website under the support pages. You can look up feature codes. You can also look up phone commands cheat sheet, which is a PDF, which has these feature codes as well as a brief description of how to use them. All right, next up, we've got Acd Cues. Acd, automatic call distribution. This is a call center feature. It's available on some plans and not others. And even on those plans that it's available on, it's an upgrade fee, right? So each queue, you pay for each queue on a monthly basis. We also have Acd Cues Pro, which have more features built in, have a higher fee, and I think they're even on less plans than the standard queues. You're definitely going to want to talk to our account services team if you're interested in these, just to make sure you're on the right plan and for which queues you want to be in. You would click on Add New Queue. I'm just going to click on the gear icon here. Right, you give it a name, and then you choose a phone number or an extension. Then you have the routing strategy. This pull down will not work, unfortunately. Round robin will equalize out over time. You also have most idle, meaning whoever's been waiting for the call the longest gets the next call. You've got most calls, meaning the most number of connected calls. All right, sorry, least calls, right? Least amount of connected calls. That person gets the next call that comes in. And you have least offers, which means whoever's had the least amount of offered calls, right? So missed and connected, gets the next call that comes in. Right. Then you've got hold treatment. You can upload a media file, right? .wav, .mp3, .ogg. For Acd Cues Pro, by the way, you don't only just have a music option. You can announce the wait in line or the position in line and have multiple media files play at different points. The queue timeout is how much time the inbound callers can wait on hold. The queue call limit, this is how many people can wait on hold. So like I can change this to 4, meaning only 4 people can wait on hold. Now, that's on top of people who are already talking to my staff members. Timeout immediately if empty. If this is enabled, that means if I have no staff members logged in and a caller comes into the queue, the system will treat them as if they've already hit this 3,600 second timeout. Extension call flow after timeout basically means after that 3,600 seconds, where do you want to send the call? Right, you can send it to a user, you can send it to a group, you can send it to one of your auto attendants, another Acd queue, etc. And then zero out call flow. This means you're giving the inbound caller the option to press 0 while they went on hold. If they do so, where do you want to send them? In this case, I am sending them to my front desk group. Then we got agent behavior. First up, we have recovery time, right? So after an agent is done with a call, how much time will the system wait before it offers them another call from this queue? Force away on reject or missed, meaning if my agent misses a call, the system will mark them away until the agent themselves mark themselves ready again. And then agent connect timeout measured in seconds. The default is 20, and that's because currently queues you can only use with VoIP devices. So 20 seconds is typically plenty of time. And any changes you make here, you just click on Save Changes or Create Queue if you just created a new queue. After that, you click on the little members icon, right, little person with the headset. This list of people are all the people who can be in my queues, right? They don't have to be in them, but they have the ability to be assigned to a queue. If I click on Manage Members, this list on the left, right, available staff members, they're not already associated with a queue. If I click on their name and then click Add as a member, now they're part of that group of that pool of people who can be in my queues. Likewise, if I want to remove somebody, right, oops, I click on their name and remove them from the list. Then you go back to queues, and then you see here, right, you got 2 people logged in. Agents, this is where you would assign additional staff members to be in this queue, right, from your queue list. And once you have agents assigned to a queue, if you click on managers, you can then choose, again, click and drag them over to make them managers of the queue, and then click on Save Changes. Excuse me. All right, here you see 2 staff members are logged in for quite some time. Here, right, answered 8 calls, missed 6, right, 0 and 0. Now up here, so for your staff members, right, they can log into dash.virtualpbx.com, click over the menu icon here, and click the Acd Cues. Beginning of their day, right, actually here, I'll end my session. Right, so first off, I start with begin session. Right, now it logs me into the queue. I'm still marked away to start. Especially that first time they log in, they should click on the little phone icon here and select a device to use, right? Be specific, basically they choose the specific device. And then when they're ready, click on where it says away, mark themselves as ready, right? So green means I'm ready to take calls. So if a call comes in, it will ring my device and I can answer that call. Right, when I go to lunch, I mark myself away. And then end of my day, I click end session. Pro queues also have a performance icon where you can compare agents to each other. And also Pro queues have the option for managers to eavesdrop on a call, whisper to their agent, or barge in. On our YouTube channel, we do have a Pro queues demo. I do recommend you taking a look at that to see the differences more clearly. All right, next up we have Blacklists. Blacklists is an included feature. It allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. Right, so you start by clicking on Blacklists and then Edit Blacklists. If you don't have a list, you click on Add. Otherwise, you just click on the list you have there. For a new list, you give it a name, and then you need to decide, are you blocking anonymous calls or not? Right, that means if we get invalid caller ID, the system will block the call from reaching us. Otherwise, you go down here, you would click on Add Number, you put +1 area code and phone number. And if you only just need to add 1 number, right, then you would click Save. If you need to add more, you would click Add again, add the next number until you're done. Then you click Save. You go back to Settings. You want to make sure the list is over here on the right under Selected. Right, once it's there, you click Update. Now that list is active. Any phone number on that list, they try to call any of my phone numbers on my account, they get busy tone. Right, they're not getting through. All right, dynamic caller ID. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change your outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. First up, you just click on Create New Rule. First up, we have this one down here, 408. What I'm saying is whenever my staff members pick up their VoIP phone and dial a 408 area code phone number, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this phone number, right? So it looks like a local call. That one is probably the easier one. The other option here is a feature code, right? So I'm saying, hey, staff members, when you're calling LA, right, pick up your VoIP phone, hit *550, and then the area code and phone number you're calling. The system will then automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. So it looks like a local area call to that person I'm calling. Now, when you create the feature codes, we do recommend using a star and then 3 digits, right? Because the system feature codes are star and 2 digits, so that should give you plenty of leeway. And then you would click on Save Changes. Oh, the phone numbers you can select on these are phone numbers on your account. All right, the faxes or the fax manager, this is a built-in feature. All right, so you can see your inbound faxes on any of your fax boxes. And I don't have any, but you would see like the date, the time, the phone number it came from, the number of pages. Right, same with the outbound faxes. Again, you would select the fax box on the account. Oh, so normally here under outbound faxes, right, you would see the successes, where they're going to, right, what fax box number, etc. The pages, you can download it. If you see a failure here, that means the system had a problem reaching out to the other fax machine, right? Could have been a busy tone. It could have been we did connect, but then we got a weird tone, or like someone picked up the handset somewhere on the other side, call disconnected prematurely, what have you. If you go to email to fax logs, if you have information here, that means the system had a problem with the fax attempt before it reaches out, right? So a problem with the document, a problem with the email address that was used, etc. Like someone used a personal email address versus the work email address, right? That would show up under email to fax logs, and there'd be a little eyeball icon here under details. If you click on that, that would expand out, and you would say, it'd give you the email address that user not found. Right? Say, oh, they used their personal email address. Likewise, if someone used the wrong document type, right? They use a docx file instead of a PDF, right? It'd say invalid attachment, doc, and give you the file. Right, monitor. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members. It doesn't matter what VoIP phone or what phone they're using, right? You can see everybody, right, who's available, who's busy. You can also split it up by devices. Over here, right, you could see all the inbound calls and who they're going to. You could also see the parked calls. If there's a parked call, you'd also see the parking spot number. Number manager, we've pretty much already seen this because that's the numbers page, except we start off on spare numbers. Right? You can buy, port, etc. The recording manager, this will take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com where you can see your call recordings. Usually, I should say, it does open a new tab when you click on it that way, which my streaming software doesn't like. But that page uses your dash login, and then you can view your recordings. You can download them and delete them. If you're using AWS storage, it would actually show you the AWS bucket that it's in, so you can manage your recordings that way. Reports would open up a new tab. to go to advanced reporting. We do have a YouTube demo about that as well. This allows you to create your own reports so you can see what's going on with the call activity. In some ways more helpful than the call logs, right? Because you can customize what you want to see. If you're interested in advanced reporting, especially after looking at the demo, you're going to want to talk to our account services team since this is an account-specific feature. Voicemails, this goes to your voicemail manager. You can get to any voicemail box on the account, right? You can see the status, the date, the time, the phone number, right? Who it came from, who it went to. You can play back the file, download it. If you select a file as an admin, you can then choose to move it to a different voicemail box if you are so inclined. You can also choose to change its status. Webhooks, plan-specific feature. This allows you to link Dash to other software. If you want examples of what we have done, you'd want to go to developer.virtualpbx.com. You actually want to talk to our sales team if you're interested in this. But yeah, if you're interested, I would say check out developer.virtualpbx.com just to see samples of what we have done. And then lastly, the user portal. Every user has their own user portal, right? As an admin, you cannot access them, but that's because you can get to everything else. So here a user can see their voicemails. Now, if you have delete after notification set up on the voicemail box, right, nothing's going to show up here. Right? This user or my user does not. So I can see when the call came in, at what time, that I've already listened to it. Here's the phone number it came from. Here's the number it went to, how long it is. I can play it back. I can download it. If I click on the box here, right, I can either change, like if I have a lot of messages, right, then I can sort, and then I can also change the status. Call history, I can see my own call history. I can change the date range to see if I'm looking for a specific call. Faxes only works if I have my own fax box. Contact list shows everything within Dash, right? So the group numbers, the feature codes, users, etc. This is not something a user can edit, right? Unless they're an admin, right? Then it affects everybody. Conference tab. This is where your users would update their conference information. So, well, it's kind of squished, but here's where they would change their moderator PIN number as well as their participant PIN number. Right? Then they have the option, do people come in muted? Do people start off deafened? Do you play an entry tone or an exit tone? And you click save. When you're in a conference, here's where you would invite other Dash users to your conference. You would lock up a conference, mute everybody, unmute everybody, end a conference call. Also, when you're in a conference under participants, you can mute a specific participant as well as kick out a participant. And then settings and devices tab. This is where your users would enable call forwarding on their own. They just put +1 area code and phone number, and then click on Save Changes. So I'll see the status of their other devices. And that is everything. So I'll go ahead and back to the dashboard. I haven't seen any questions pop up, so I'll go ahead and wrap this up for today. Again, we'll be back next Tuesday. Feel free to watch the previously recorded trainings as well as this one. Beyond that, I thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a